अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. I'm your host Manisha Pande. I'm back after a break of 3 weeks after a very traumatic vacation experience that I'll talk about. But I'm back here. Abhinandan is still in Europe. He's going to be back this week. So next week we're going to be a full house and we'll have a lot to discuss about our travels. But meanwhile, I'm going to be your host this week. We have Sriram Lakshman with us, who is foreign correspondent of The Hindu, joining us from London. Welcome, Sriram. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be
Thank you for having me.
asking you to give us all the fun snippets on everything that's happening with the elections there, the election results there, actually. In-house, we have with us Raman sir. Hello, Raman sir.
Hi.
Did I miss a lot of news in these 3 weeks?
No, I don't think so. There was a lull after the
Elections.
results and Parliament, yes. I don't think you had missed Parliament, did you?
I missed Parliament.
Or you
The
missed
first session I
Parliament?
missed.
So yes, in Parliament, good speech of, Rahul Gandhi spoke, it seems very well, and people were talking about it. We also talked.
Equations have changed a little
Equations
bit.
have changed a little. People were saying that now the ministers, the BJP MPs are stopping the Prime Minister ki sir humse bhi baat kar lijiye tag. So, which they never dared to do in the past. So that's what, but all gossip. We don't know.
And we have with us Shardool. Hello, Shardool.
Hello.
Welcome. So we're going to quickly do the headlines. But before that, I have 2 announcements. We have Newslaundry and News Minute joint subscription. So please check that out too. With 1 subscription, you can get access to 2 paywalls. So it's really worth your money. Check that out and subscribe to Newslaundry and News Minute. And with that, Shardool, let's get the headlines. Okay, so let's go to our guest first, Sriram. 2 main elections this week. The French elections, and incidentally, I was in Paris when the results were announced, so I have some things to share on that. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was quite interesting. So I was in a bit of a liberal neighborhood, Marais.
Okay.
So of course, everyone was popping champagne, celebrating grand victory of the left and all that. But anyway, so 2
Right.
elections. I think UK elections were fairly predictable. That's what
Yes.
everyone. But the French elections were slightly unpredictable because, at least in the run-up to the polls, it was assumed that the right may actually come with a very strong majority. So there's no clear majority in France, but at least the right has been thwarted for now. And most people in France, at least, were very relieved that, unlike Italy, unlike what's happening in Germany, we've been able to keep the extreme right out. So
Right.
tell us, first, what was the mood like where you were? And what are the big, lessons that we can draw from these 2 elections, especially, for the US, because we're going to be heading into the US elections also this year in October, I think, right? November.
So I think the big lessons we can draw from this is that there is a resurgence of the right or far right, as you want to call it, across various European countries, although the story from country to country is different and you cannot generalize. The right parties have done better in some countries than in others. But on the whole, the center has held, both in the European parliamentary elections, which is another 3rd election we had last month, and also in the UK. And as you correctly said, and you have a better sense of what was happening on the ground since you were in Paris, in a very liberal neighborhood. We don't know what the outcome of that is. And the center is not held in Paris. I think we can say that. We'll see what happens with all the negotiations between the left and the center. But in the UK, what has happened is the Labour Party has formed the new government with a landslide majority in terms of seats. The vote share says a different story, and we can get into that. And one thing to note is the Labour Party has, over the last few years, under Keir Starmer, the new Prime Minister, moved itself to the center and moved itself away from Jeremy Corbyn. And that was very much part of their strategy to form a government, and it has paid off. So I would say there's been some renewal in the right, far right, but in most of the cases, the center has held.
In fact, I was reading a very interesting piece in the Washington Post. And with regards to UK, it had an interesting line which said that the best way to challenge right-wing populism is to let them fail at governance. That, you just let the conservatives, the 14 years of misrule. I mean, this mandate is also being looked at as
Right.
just a rejection of the conservatives. Somewhere,
Correct.
even
Absolutely.
in India, even though Modi has come back, but with a diminished kind of strength, that seems to hold true here also, that you just let them fail at governance and then you can counter right-wing populism. Would you agree with that? Or what do you make of that,
I think
Shardul?
if you,
Okay, you and then...
oh, sorry, was that directed
No,
to me?
go ahead. Yeah, you go ahead and I'll come to Shardul and then Raman, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think just a quick point that if you go back a few weeks to early June in France, that was some analysts were theorizing that is one of the reasons Macron called the snap election. Either he was taking a gamble which hasn't paid off, as we know now, or he wanted to give the French people a taste of what they seem to want. Okay, you wanted the right in the parliamentary elections. Have your go now in the French elections and get it out of your system. That was one of the theories.
Shardul?
It depends on how you take a look at it, because the inference I derive from this is politicians should never call early elections. Look at Macron, look at Rishi Sunak, and we have our Indian experience also. The last time Atal Bihari Vajpayee called 6 months earlier, he lost. So never give up on power early. The second thing is, like, there is a significant difference in India and UK in terms of that if you look at last 100 years, like ours is not 100, 75. So BJP has ruled 15. Let's say 16, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee small term governments. In UK, Conservative Party has ruled for 17 last 100 years. Like Labour has rarely been, if you take a long term view. And they were in power for last 14 years and they ruined everything. Like I wanted to add a question if possible for him. So, Keir Starmer, since the announcement of results, he has said that he is right now neutral or hoping or sort of open to keeping Rishi Sunak's immigration policies and austerity measures, which sort of bankrupted UK's social support for people, like NHS. So is that a popular move? Because what I saw online was that people were saying that left has won, but he's acting like a right-wing person.
Raman sir, your tippani on...
No, your question was failure of governance. So I think failure of governance, it's true for any political party. It's not just the right. I mean, even if the left party is any liberal...
I mean, UPA too in that sense.
So if you fail at governance, you are going to lose elections. So in our case also, I mean, in case of Modi, if you had extensively covered it from the ground, and I have been, reading, watching all your programs, you most of the students you interviewed and people you interviewed, everybody raised the questions of unemployment. Everybody raised the question of paper leak. The youth was really unhappy. And unemployment. Everybody spoke about unemployment. Almost everybody. So and social welfare schemes, the so-called, that freebies, they did not work in the end. So I think it is true for any political party, not just Modi, any political party. I have one question to share. You just said voting share, vote share, gave a different picture. So what is it?
We also have Suhasini joining us. This is a Hindu special podcast on Newslaundry.
Thanks for bringing the colleagues together, Manisha.
Suhasini Haidar is, of course,
Suhasini.
She's the diplomatic editor of The Hindu. You guys are very familiar with her writing, and she's, of course, come to Hafta before. She also hosts a weekly online show called Worldview with Suhasini Haidar. Are you in Moscow right now?
I'm back from Moscow.
Oh, you're back. So
I just got back yesterday.
You'll tell us of all the interesting things that happened between Mr. Modi and Putin. Lots of love, romance I saw on television news at least. Nothing has changed, by the way. And TV media is back to doing what it used to do.
And we are too cynical here. I mean, we always view, if Modi goes out, how he's going to address the domestic population, with his utterances abroad. But if you can tell us how is our national interest served, in this meeting?
Sure. I have to say that so far what we have seen of the Indian foreign policy, and one of the reasons why you see this kind of real confidence in the government when it comes to foreign policy, is so far they have been able to build balances into everything. And a kind of system where you can go to Washington and get this red carpet and then go to Moscow and get the red carpet too, and neither side is going to say anything to you. They've obviously had issues with some countries like China, Pakistan, Maldives. But in general, when it comes to the other world powers, they've been able to manage this as a kind of balance. I think the Moscow trip was a shift from that. Because it's the first time we're seeing this kind of criticism of a visit by Prime Minister Modi mid-visit, where Washington expressed its concerns about India's relations with Russia. The Ukrainian government was much more sort of sharp in its criticism. Mr. Zelenskyy himself coming out with a tweet and saying it's a devastating blow to peace efforts that the leader of the world's largest democracy is embracing what he called a criminal, a bloody criminal, in fact. So you see a shift. But the fact that Prime Minister Modi went to Moscow, I think, is a very interesting message that he's putting out.
And what keeps Putin so popular? So is it like, do people, like when you meet Chinese, I've never been to China, but whenever in these exchange programs, you sometimes meet Chinese journalists. Of course, they're also very scared of what they're saying and all that, but they really like Xi, and they think, he's done everything for China and that we're not ready for democracy and he knows best. That kind of sentiment you see among at least the two Chinese journalists that I met said that. What about Putin? Like, is there just great, is he as popular as we see him here, or is there discontent? Or are people just too scared to touch it?
This is the world we are coming into now. To begin with, given social media, given the advent of this very weird kind of authoritarianism that comes with the explosion of social media, I'm not sure that we can, any of us, say with hand on heart that you can get a full picture of how people feel genuinely, especially when they're outside their country or they're speaking to someone from outside the country. I mean, even in a country like India, which is a democracy, we know that if you were to speak to a certain kind of media, you'd get a very different picture of the country than if you were to speak to Manisha and Suhasini. So, that kind of the rose-tinted version of what's happening inside their country. Yes, of course, there is that. I didn't honestly, Putin has now been a leader for 24 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
It's more than Xi Jinping came in 2013.
Yeah.
And I think he's become just a default. He's become the reality there. I'm not sure about popularity, but there's a sense that, he's there.
Inevitability to his...
Inevitability,
Modi ji must be asking, kaise kiya? Hame bhi tips do.
No, but
go ahead.
Look, what I understand, and it's a very limited understanding, but you consume content about these countries and how the people think and how the political cultures have evolved. These two societies, like the one you mentioned, Chinese and Russians, they like the strength in their leaders, in their political systems. They are not very averse to one person or one entity, be it like it used to be with Yeltsin. The last one was Yeltsin, right? Boris Yeltsin. One entity or one person holding that much power. There is not much resentment. Like in India, there is a lot of resentment. If one person becomes too powerful, even in a RWA, people try to vote him out.
I was just curious to know, since you said that you've been to many countries and in some countries you're being minded. So which is the most controlled visit you've had?
China.
China?
I mean, it's quite obvious. Central Asian countries are difficult also because language issues. In the countries, I don't have a language issue. I would say in Sri Lanka, surprisingly, in the war, they were the most controlled, but that was more than a decade ago. In terms of even what you recorded, having things deleted and that sort of thing. Pakistan, you always get a minder if you're an Indian, and the minder will be just close enough behind you so that you know that you're being shadowed. And I'd say, many countries, you don't even need the minder because everybody is watching you.
Everyone
You don't
is
even-
minded.
Yeah.
If I may ask,
China, of course. Sorry, I should say this. In China, it takes a new age step because, for example, in the years when we were still, pre Galwan, really, in Xinjiang, it was to the point that you have minders, but you also have biometrics working everywhere. So if you want to cross the road, you can cross the road, but then you have to go through a kind of a gateway which checks your biometrics. And if they don't recognize you, a policeman will come up to you, which is what happened to us, and escort you to a police station from where your minder comes and collects you.
Wow.
So there are shades of this in various places. If you're a journalist, in any case, it's like big target on your back in a lot of countries of the world.
now if I may ask, did you go independently or you were part of or PM Modi has started taking?
Yeah, what's happening to that in the third term?
Oh, so RIP to your troll mentions now, because the moment we say this, we get so much hate on Twitter. But since 2014,
बस मुफ्त में इतना ही मिलेगा. For the full uncut podcast, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. The best way to listen to the Hafta and indeed all our podcasts is through the Newslaundry app. You can download the app by clicking on the links given in the show notes. So do download our app and get the best podcast experience. And also pay for news and support a new news media ecosystem that Newslaundry is trying to encourage, where we are accountable to you because we run on contributions that you make. We don't take government ads, we don't take corporations ads, so that news serves the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Subscribe to Newslaundry, click on the link in the show notes below and proudly say, I pay to keep news free.